Put a finger down if you're writing a fiction book and you've already written 15,000 words of this book, and it's a spiritual mystery book pretty much about how your soul on earth gets to choose what lessons it has, and you've already written like characters and different levels of ascension and councils and things like that. And then one day you go to Goodwill and you're in the book section and a book literally falls on your foot and you decide to buy it because it was like a sign for something, and you start reading it, and it's a nonfiction book about old Egyptian and Tibetan religions. And when you start reading this book, it literally is exactly your fiction book that you're writing up until literally the names and councils and ascensions and levels. And now you're wondering and questioning everything, if your fiction book is actually nonfiction and where you got this information, because you never had prior knowledge of it and this idea just came to you one day.
I need an explanation on this right now, aside from the fact that there might be a glitch in the matrix, okay? Because the other day I'm unpacking my house and I had a full-blown panic attack, and it wasn't really acknowledged to the fact that it should have been by my boyfriend, because this is the weirdest thing. I actually just remembered about it right now and I need to share, and I need somebody to tell me what the fuck is going on. Okay, so I'm clearing out my hats and I look down and I see my New Orleans hat, and I'm like, no, there's not two of them. I don't own, I'm actually gonna cry right now. I don't own two of these hats. Never have. I've only ever owned one. I've never seen two in my life. I don't ever recall someone giving me two of these hats. I've been to New Orleans once in my life and I purchased this hat 6 or 7, maybe 10, it could have honestly been, I think 10 years ago I bought this hat. So tell me why I get to my house and I'm unpacking. I don't remember putting two in the box either. Okay, how? And then it dawned, I remembered seeing a TikTok of somebody, it was like her grandmother's ring or watch or something, and then she found two of them, and I can't take this lightly anymore. My boyfriend didn't really give me the time of day. I said that I feel like I'm going insane. I feel like I shouldn't be touching this. Like, I don't, there's two. Can somebody explain? And like, they're both almost like worn and weathered in the exact same way.
Okay, so I have a little story to tell you. I recently moved into my own house and it's so cute. I love it. I'm divorcing, and when I moved in with my soon-to-be ex, I had a bunch of boxes, that I had packed up and just put in the basement. And I never took all my things out, I just kept them in the boxes down there. And, now that I'm in my cute little home, I want to make it my cute little home. So I go down to the basement and I was like, well, let me see what's in some of these boxes. So it's so I'm taking things out, and I come across, so this is my grandma Pearl. My doggy's kind of chewed on her. Sorry. Love you. And her favorite flower was a yellow rose. So on her casket, there were yellow roses. And my family members took the caskets and took the rose and got them dried, right? And they gave them to all of us. And throughout the years, I've had financial difficulties here and there, and I lost a bunch of items in a storage unit twice, actually. Oh my God. Anyways, I thought I had lost my dried flower, but I did not, because she is right here with me. I love her. So I was super excited. So I ran upstairs and I'm like, okay, I have to put her up high so the grandkids don't get her. And then I go back downstairs and I'm going through that box and I'm, what else do I have in this box? So I'm looking, and I get another item and I'm like, this is really similar to what I just unwrapped, but okay. So then I unwrapped a second one. What is that? I've only ever had one. Why do I have two? I how the fuck did they not break after 10 years? Anyways, so a little glitch in the matrix going on, a little parallel universe, perhaps. And something else happened to me a couple of weeks ago. There was 2 items, and I thought I only had one. I was really weirded out about it, and I called my twin sister, and I'm like, wait, this is that thing I see on TikTok where people are discovering, like, 2 items, and they know they only had one, and yada, yada, yada. So I listen to a lot of podcasts with, like, I won't really get into it, but, like, Jeff Marr and Alex Ferrara. And, yeah, a lot of their guests are talking about what's going on in the universe right now. And yeah, it's happening. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, as I thought it was really cool and weird and fun and exciting. But yeah, all right, bye.
It is a ongoing bit with my friends and my family. Hold on. Can I get comfortable with the trench? Okay. That I, like, living in my apartment and all of my previous apartments, there's just, like, some crazy shit going on. Like, it's an ongoing bit that, like, I attract chaos where, in whatever space that I live in. I need someone to explain this one to me. My roommate and I had a party just about 2 weeks ago now. And we have couch covers on our couch because the couch is white. We have a dog, whatever. So the day after the party, my roommate takes the couch covers off the couch. There were 8 of them. She puts all 8 in the washer. She takes them out of the washer. She puts all 8 in the dryer. 6 couch covers come out of the dryer. We're like, what? I'm climbing into the washer. I'm climbing into the dryer. I'm looking under the couch. I'm thinking maybe she doubled up and she put like 2 on one couch cushion. We can't find the other 2. We're like, and we didn't even look that long. She was just like, I can't with living with it here. Like, add another thing to the list of just like, parallel storyline. I just moved to Boston 2 months ago. My skin's kind of being weird. I'm thinking maybe it's the water. Like, it's just, So I order a water filter from Amazon. What comes in is a, like, package. I can see through the package. The package is like kind of opaque. It's like see-through, and it's fabric on the other side. And I thought it was a dress because it was Halloween and I was ordering a bunch of shit. I didn't order that, but like a cream color, and it looked almost like terry cloth. I didn't even open it. I was just like, this is not what I ordered. So I messaged Amazon. I'm like, I didn't order this. Like, can I have the water filter? Like, we'll trade. And they're like, yeah, totally, send it back. So these 2 storylines are like happening in parallel. At one point, I am standing outside of my room with my roommate, and she's like, reflecting on the amount of shit that's just like happened since we've moved in together. And she comes in my room as she's saying this, and she points to the package, and she's like, I bet those are 2 couch cushions. And I'm like, or 2 couch covers. And I'm like, no. And I knew. I'm like, what if they are? I go open those. She opens it. 2 couch covers are in this package from Amazon. And they're not the same ones. That would be fucking crazy. But they're pretty damn close. Like, cream colored, terry cloth. Anyone?
It's a rumor that older hotels in like New York, Chicago, Toronto used to have a hidden floor between 12 and 14. Now, you wouldn't know about this floor unless you knew. It's not labeled, not accessible by stairs. Like, you had to know how to put the combination in the floor panel. According to the legend, if you press 12 close, 14 close, and don't make a sound, it will take you to an unmarked floor. People who made it there claim that the door opens to a hallway of rooms that look abandoned. It's flickering lights, and all the way at the end, there's one door that's wide open. And then if you walk towards that door, you'll start to hear your name whispered, but like somebody standing right behind you whispering it. If you was to ask people about it, maintenance staff would deny it. Security would say it don't exist, and it's nowhere in the blueprints. But on Reddit and old paranormal forums, People describe this exactly the same, and it's in multiple cities. And they all say the same thing. Don't go inside the open door, don't look in it, or the elevator won't take you back. And then the only way to get back is going into the elevator and hitting the close with your eyes closed. The gag is nobody knows what really happens in that door that's open because the people who made it in the door never made it back. So if you ever do try it and you feel it in your spirit, don't go down that hallway. But if you do, come back and comment, or if you know somebody who tried this trick, let me know what happened.
My grandmother got stuck in another dimension after she passed away, and she reached out to me from the other side to ask for help, so I'm going to tell you guys the story. My grandmother passed away after a long battle with addiction to prescription medication that she took for anxiety and depression, which is the mental illness that runs in my lineage. And it's something that we are all still dealing with today, a lot of the women in our family. But her addiction started later in her life, like the last 10 years of her life. Ultimately, it is what led to the end of her life. But she was the matriarch of our family. She's like the person that kept everyone together, and we all love her very much. A couple weeks after she passed, I was falling asleep, and I was in that like twilight zone, like the moment right before you fall into a deeper sleep. And the best way that I can explain this is like if you've seen a movie where someone gets into a car accident or a traumatic event happens and the character in the scene is kind of stumbling around and it's quiet, like there's no audio except for a ringing kind of in your ear, and they're looking around, and then as the scene continues they start to be able to hear people's voices, and it sounds like they're far away, and then it gets closer and closer until finally maybe someone calls out their name, and it's loud. So if you've ever seen a movie like that, that's how this experience was, where I was in that twilight zone and all of a sudden I could hear my Mimi, and I was seeing all of these pictures of her in my mind. Like I could see her calling out to me. And at first it was completely quiet, and then it just was like a whisper, and then it got louder and louder until almost audibly it felt like in the room I heard her say Mackenzie in this very urgent tone, and I shot up out of bed. I felt like I could hear it in the room. So a couple nights later, I fall asleep, and this time I'm actually sleeping, and I have a dream. And in this dream, I'm standing on this road, and I'm in a neighborhood, but it's dark except for this one street lamp in the distance in front of me that is on. And underneath the street lamp is parked this black limousine. And I look down at my feet, and there's about 1.5 to 2 inches of water that I'm standing in. I look to my right and my left, and the houses are like what you can imagine from Harry Potter. They're like almost townhome style, kind of stacked next to each other, these brick older homes. And I see this street lamp with this limousine, and so I start walking toward it. And as I approach it, the back driver's side window is rolled all the way down. I look into it, and my Mimi is sitting there, and she's very gaunt and decrepit and just like shriveled up, and she's has her hands in her lap, and she's looking down, and I lean into the window and I say Mimi, and she turns and she looks at me, and her eyes are sunken into her face, and she says, "It's dimensional." And then I woke up from the dream. Mind you, I had just come out of a religious cult. My entire life experience of the afterlife was what evangelicalism teaches. So it was heaven and hell. There was no in between. But my inner knowing was so strong that this was my Mimi, and she had not fully passed over to the other side. And I knew that. So I had some more experiences after that with her coming to me and asking for help from me to help her cross over to the other side. And I kept saying I didn't know how. I didn't know how to help her cross over. I didn't know what to do. And this went on for 2 full years, where she would come to me in dreams or in these kind of twilight sleep phases where I wasn't quite asleep, and I would see her and hear her, and she would tell me that she was needing help. I could feel her anxiety, and I could feel her fear. She just felt very much still stuck in the mental state that she was in when she had passed away. Over a 2-year period of time, I was doing a lot of inner work as I deconstructed from this religious cult that I was in. About 2 years after the initial experience, 2 years after she passed, I was once again in bed, and I was falling asleep into that twilight space, I had this out-of-body experience where I was transferred out of my body and I could see my body on the bed, but I also was floating in something that felt like water, and my soul was floating above my body, and I had this knowing that I was in another dimension. I'm not going to explain all of the things that I saw in this video because it was wild and there was a lot to it, but I will say that my grandmother appeared in this vision or out-of-body experience or dream or whatever it was. I was experiencing myself awake in my body and experiencing this outside of my body. I don't know how to explain that. And she came as this star. She was just like this ball of light. And she was in front of me. And I had this overwhelming sense of joy that she had found her way out of the darkness. And I looked at her in her light orb state and I said, "You did it." And she said, "We did it." And then she like started to buzz really fast and then spin really, really quickly in a circle, and then she shot out into the ethers. And that's when I knew that she had finally passed over, and all of those dreams and the anxiety and her coming to me and calling to me for help ended. I did end up having another experience with her some months later. I had another encounter with her where she explained to me why I was the one that was helping her and how I helped her, because I was confused about that. I was like, what did I actually do that helped you? But she came to me and I had an encounter where she explained that to me. So I can talk about that in another video if you're interested. Okay, love you, bye.
So I just had a Matrix moment. I'm making, Hawaiian roll sliders tonight, and that stuff. And recipes calling for Worcestershire sauce. So I go into the fridge, and that's what I see. This is where I keep my Worcestershire sauce all the time. That's its home. Always its home. I see that I don't have any more Worcestershire sauce. I guess I ran out. So in my pantry, I always have an extra bottle. Costco, you get a double pack. Always have Worcestershire because I use it a lot. I love Worcestershire sauce. So I used it in this mixture for the Hawaiian roll things. Full bottle. And this is what happened. I go to put the full bottle back, and there's another bottle sitting in its place. Like, there's no way I'm, like, crazy enough to open up another bottle when, like, it has to be a Matrix moment or something. Something isn't right. Something isn't right, because that was not there. That was not there. Why would I get another bottle? That bottle never sits anywhere else but than that spot. I'm not crazy. Maybe I need to tell myself that at night. I don't know. That super weird moment. And now I have 2 bottles of Worcestershire open. I mean, it'll get used, but
I have a lot of stories to tell from my life, and I'm working on a bunch of really cool stuff right now, and I'm waiting on something to dry. So I thought I'd tell you stories where I've said in my life, like, something weird is going on. A lot of them are from being a nurse. I was an ICU nurse for about 10 years. I'm going to tell you 2 of my mystical, weird nursing stories. I don't have proof of these stories, obviously, because I'm in a hospital, so you're just going to have to take my word for it, but I'm not lying to you. Okay. Being a nurse was really, really hard on me and my psyche and my emotions and my experience of the world. But it also got me in touch with, like, the other side. I'm working in the ICU. I'm a night shift nurse, and I'm getting report on a patient. The patient is not neuro intact. They're not in there. They don't respond. And I was like, okay, and I write it down. It looked obvious that they didn't respond. And so I took her word for it. But even when a patient couldn't respond to me, I'd always talk to them because one, I was lonely, and two, I'm like, what if they could hear? Some of the rooms that we take care of patients were isolation rooms. I only had one patient, and it was just me and this person who couldn't talk pretty much all night long. Night shift gives baths, so I'm giving them a bath. That's why I'm talking to them the most, because I'm all up in their business. And I'm like, are you comfortable? And they shake their head, yes. And I was like, oh, you're in there. This is great news. And wasn't neuro intact for quite a long time. Well, now they're answering questions. Nurse works 12-hour shifts, and I would always stack mine in a row. I could have 4 days off to do whatever I wanted. So I ended up having this patient for 3 days in a row. And because I'm a sensitive girl, I end up forming a bond with this patient. So I have them for 3 nights, and then I'm off for 4. On the 4th night, I'm due to come back. So I go to sleep that night, and I end up having this dream. That I walk into the patient's room, the isolation room that they were in, and there's all these boxes and suitcases and luggage. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're up standing in the room. I was like, where are you going? And they were like, I'm going home. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how good you look. But you know what? It makes sense. Like, it's so much huge progress in 4 days. And they're like, I just wanted to give you a big hug. So I give this patient like a huge hug, and it was so lovely. And they were like, thank you so much. And I was like, of course. I get to work. I go to the board. I look at the name, and they're not there. I was like, did they move to the step-down unit? Are they on med-surg now? They were like, no, that patient passed away last night. I was like, what? I literally had a dream that they were going home last night. And in reality, they kind of were. Another time, I was taking care of a patient who had really done something horrible to themselves, and they were so sick. They were on the ECMO machine that took their blood out, okay, oxygenated it, and put it back in. No one could get them off sedation, and so they weren't making any progress at all. And they were like, we really need to get them off sedation. And for some reason, every time they wake up, they're freaking the heck out. I got that patient. I was like, I'm going to try to get them off sedation. Like, let's make some progress. Let's do this. The first night I had them, I started lowering and tapering off their sedation. They started waking up, and they started freaking out. And of course, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go back on sedation. Like, every time they would freak out, it would increase their oxygen demand, and it would make them really unstable. Crap, I got to figure this out. It's the first night of 3 nights in a row, and I'll know I'll have this patient the next day. But I go home and I go to bed, and for some reason, I fell asleep with socks on, which I never do. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, and I was like, get this shit off me. I was like, have you ever done that? When you wake up and you're way too hot, and you're like, take these socks off of me, take these blankets off of me. I felt like crap. I go back to the hospital the next day, and I do the same thing all over again. I try to lower the sedation. I'm trying everything. I'm giving him different medicine. Of course, the patient starts freaking out again. So I go up on the sedation, and I'm just sitting there. And for some reason, I did something bad. I looked them up on social media, and I'm looking through all their posts, and I'm like, man, I can't believe this is like happening to you. And I start like connecting with them or something. Start lowering the sedation again. And they start freaking out again. But this time, something happens to me. I get so freaking hot. I start breaking a profuse sweat right at the bedside. I start feeling so sick. I'm like, oh my God, I have to sit down. I have to call another nurse over. I start going back up on the sedation. And I'm like, sorry, I don't know. Something just overcame me. The other nurse comes, takes a break for me, and I go to the bathroom. And I'm in the bathroom, and I'm thinking for a second. And I'm like, you know what? This patient has boots on, gloves on, a neck brace. They have all of this stuff, and they can't regulate their own temperature because the blood in the ECMO machine is being taken out and warmed and put back in. And I noticed that they were spiking fevers. And I was like, what if they're just too hot? Like the other night when I woke up from sleep and I was too hot. And I freaked out. So I went back to the bedside, and I was like, all right, guys, gather around. We're about to do something crazy. I was like, we're going to take off all of their mittens, all of their boots. We're even going to take off their neck brace. And they're like, are you crazy? The person freaks out every time you lower the sedation. I was like, I don't know. I think they're too hot. Maybe they need help trying to regulate their body temperature. I don't know. I just want to try it. They're like, okay. By the end of the night, this patient was completely off sedation, watching the football game on TV. And I was like, something weird's going on. I was like, I got hot the night before because I slept with socks on. The next day, I got profusely hot trying to lower the sedation. And that was the answer. I ended up doing a whole project on ICU patients getting too hot and waking up and like being confused. All those series of events lined up perfectly to save that person's life. In both stories, it's like I connected into these people and it caused these otherworldly experiences where I was like, something weird is going on here.
So everyone's talking about these glitches in the Matrix that they've seen, and I have to admit, I actually have experienced something like this. So it happened, this is 100% real, 100% true story. I was in my hometown a couple of years ago, literally just driving from my mom's house to the grocery store to pick up some things from the grocery store. And I'm driving along the road, and my sister is next to me, but she's talking to me, and so I'm glancing like to my right. And I see right outside the passenger side window a seagull stuck in the air, like flapping its wings in place, stuck. It wasn't like a perfect draft, because it would move very slightly if that were the case, but it was like, you could tell it was like stuck where it was, like frantically flapping its wings trying to get away. And I'm like, is it on like a wire? Is there like a wire in the middle of the air? Or like, what's there? But there was no wire. There's no space for a wire. This is right next to a freeway. It wasn't like near a telephone line or near a electricity line. And even if there was like a perfect updraft moment in the air, it wouldn't be perfectly still and be like trapped. You don't get trapped in the air. You can just stop flapping or something. Like if the updraft doesn't work, you can just move. Like I assume you just stop flapping. But it was the weirdest thing. And I did end up seeing later clips of like these glitches of like frozen birds that get stuck in the air in places in the Matrix. It's just wild. And now I'm hearing these other glitches, and I'm like, what is happening here? Is this real? Did I see that? Even after it happened, I'm like trying to convince my sister. She had enough time to glance and see it for a moment. So she's like, yeah, there was a bird there. I don't know if it was frozen. And I'm like, it was frozen. It's right there. It's behind us. Anyway.
So I went to a psychic, and I'm convinced that I had a full conversation with the demon, and I'm going to tell you about it. Quick backstory: Jesus radically saved my life about 2 years ago, but before that, I was crazy. My dad died when I was little, so I really wanted to find a way to be able to communicate with him. So what better way, I thought, than going to see a psychic/medium. At that point, I was like dabbling in a lot of like tarot, witchcrafty kind of things. So I was like, this is like a great opportunity. So I go to see her. I pull up to her spot. She lives in Chicago, so it's like a house, like front, whatever. So she walks out to come get me, and immediately she's like so excited to see me. I walk in, key thing, the sage is burning. Okay, so say what you want about sage, but I feel like it is opening up to demonic entities. It's almost like how our worship is like incense to the Lord, like sage is like incense to the devil. That's in my opinion. And in my experience, I've seen that firsthand. So anyways, so she walks you in, the sage is burning, she walks me into a back room. And I'm like, okay, like this is kind of like different, but whatever. So we go into the back room, we sit down, she's like, can I say a prayer for us? And I'm like, in my head, I didn't know who God was at that point. Like, I had grown up in like a Catholicism, but I didn't really like have a relationship with him. So I'm like not thinking anything of it. I'm like, sure. So sage is burning. She puts her head down, looks back up, starts praying in tongues, and her eyes roll in the back of her head. The only other time I've ever heard those specific prayers, and I know it was demonic, is because I have these like crazy demonic dreams sometime, and it was the same exact like voice, tone, and just like words that were coming out of her mouth. I understand you can pray in tongues spiritually in Christianity, but this was not that. I've heard that before. This was actually demonic. It sounded crazy, but I thought nothing of it when her eyes rolled in the back of her head. When I tell you this woman knew things about me that I've never talked about anybody, she knew talked to anybody about. She knew tattoos on my body. I was completely covered. She knew specific tattoos. She knew things that I had only ever told my dad. Demons know us because they study us. They can't predict our future because they don't know that. Only the Lord knows that. But they can like toy with those things. But they watch us. They study us. So in a situation like that, they can come back and say, like, these are all the things that I've seen in your life because I've also been with you. I have been looking and I have been studying you. So at that point, as she's telling me all this, I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, I feel like I'm connecting with my dad. Mind you, during that time, she was like, I feel like you have some spiritual gifts. Like, I'd love to just get to know you more and like help you with those gifts. What the devil uses for negative, God will always use for good. Now I use my voice to glorify God. But all that being said, going to a psychic is actually demonic, and I'm fully convinced that I had a conversation with a demon.
2 years ago, my youngest daughter woke up with marks on her neck that looked like vampire bites. We didn't know exactly what to do, but she did experience some issues for about 2 weeks. She couldn't stand light. She slept all day. She had all the symptoms of the typical vampire ways, and we thought it was maybe her imagination. We couldn't quite figure it out. We tried everything. We called a doctor. We investigated. These marks just appeared on her neck out of nowhere. The bites lasted on her neck, like they slowly fade. They were a typical bite. They were like a bite that had healed, but it was there. Like one night it wasn't, the next morning it was, but it took about a month for the bites to fade. And we thought it was an isolated incident. You know, we were checking everybody else's neck in the house. It was fine. About a month later, my daughter looked down at her ankle, same exact bites, and they were faded as if she was bitten the same time as my youngest daughter was bitten. We just didn't notice it. Same size, same dimension apart, same size, everything the same except a different part of her body. When this first started, all lived in the same house. Me, my 4 children, and my son-in-law. We all lived in the same house. And this happened over a span of 2 years. So the next year, by this time, my daughter and her fiance had moved out. So a few months later, my daughter called me. She said, "Mom, the bites are back. This time, they're on my arm." And she had a bite on her arm, same size bites, same dimension apart, everything the same, just now on her arm. But the bite was changing, and it was not going away, as if she was being bitten in the same spot multiple times. And even the bite started to even like I don't know, like spread as if she was being bitten over and over again in the same spot. Didn't know what to do. And she says, "Okay, you know, I've been bitten, Tajay's been bitten, now Keenan's being bitten." And I'm like, what do you mean? So she sends me this video of the bites, on very obvious bites, same size, same dimension apart, on her fiance's neck. So now I'm confused. Okay, so I'm like, okay, so this is not just my children. Now I'm really like, now I'm seeking out paranormal experts. I'm emailing people. I'm reaching out to, you know, even famous paranormal, trying to figure out, hey, you know, psychics, everybody. Hey, can somebody tell me something? Because this is getting ridiculous. And now the vampire, it was a vampire, started really biting Keenan. So at one point, Keenan had bites, just bites, all over his neck. Like, and he wasn't trying to hide it. Like, he was very obvious. my children and I, we experienced the paranormal. This is not the first time. So I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying, we're not freaking out. Everybody stay calm. So I reached out to one person, and they were like, oh, it's aliens. Aliens tracking your bloodline. So if you read your history, many believe that the human race was altered. We weren't created by aliens, but our bodies have been altered by aliens. Like the pyramids and all that stuff was supposedly built by humans, but we were so smart that they suppressed. There's a DNA strand in us that's blocked. And supposedly that's the strand that opens up the other parts of our brain. I don't know. Anyway, so they're saying, oh, when so-called the world's about to end, these aliens coming back for a select few. So maybe it's aliens tracking your bloodline. I'm like, okay. Then the last most sense I heard was a psychic. She's a well-known. She's psychic around the world. I got in touch with her on Facebook, and I sent her a bunch of messages. She responded, and she said, well, let me meditate and let me see if I can find out what this is. She got back to me and she told me it is a vampire. And I'm like, okay, why? And she said, well, he wants to turn your oldest daughter. He said he's come here and he ain't going nowhere. He wants your oldest daughter. So now I'm asking this woman, why is this vampire, if he wants my oldest daughter, why is he biting everybody? Except me. He doesn't bite me, but he bites all the adult children. He bites my adult son-in-law. Like, he's careful not to bite my youngest son, which is the minor. And she said, because if he bit Alexis every time he came, he'd kill her. So that's when I got alarmed. I'm like, okay, this is too much. He wasn't only biting my daughters. I didn't know this, but he actually bit my oldest son when we were all in the house together. When I came over, when the vampire got aggressive and just started biting all over my son-in-law's neck, I came over to the house to see the pictures in person, to see his neck in person, and my oldest son happened to be home, or happened to be at my daughter's house from college, and he heard us talking about it. He was like, oh, I've had those bites. He's like, I had them on my arm, and I thought they were unusual, but I just was like, whatever. I thought a bug bit me. I'm like, that'd be a huge bug, Tristan. Why didn't you tell me? He's like, I don't know. He said he's not going anywhere. He's here to stay. He wants her. She called him somehow, and he's not going nowhere until he takes her back with him. That's when I'm like, okay, I call Alexis and say, hey, this vampire said you called him. Did you call on a vampire? Did you summon a vampire? Like, what did you do? And she was like, no, I don't think so. And she explained to me some years back, like when she was a teenager, 4 or 5 years back, she was obsessed with the show True Blood. She was obsessed with vampires, just like like kids are. Like, oh, vampires are sexy. They have powers. And she was obsessed with their powers. And she just really wanted to be able to have vampiric powers. The power to, what they call it, glamorize people, to make them do, say. And just the whole typical teenage thing with vampires. But she didn't call herself calling a vampire. So I was like, okay, Alexis, he said he's not going nowhere, that he wants to turn you and take you back with him. Do you want to go? Like, come on, you brought this on yourself. And she was like, no, I don't want to go. Of course not. I don't want to die and go off, live with some vampire somewhere. I don't know. I might end up in hell. So I want to go to heaven. I want to go with Jesus said. I want to go with God. I don't want to go. I don't know nothing about no vampires. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this. So that's when I started to pray. I said, God, forgive us. Forgive Alexis. We didn't know, she didn't know what she was wishing for. She just was, glamorized by the show True Blood, and help us. I started to pray, cry out, ask God to intervene, and without fear. Like, I had no fear. None of us really had no fear. My youngest son did. Landon had a little fear. But the rest of us kind of was like, okay, this is another issue we have to deal with. Let's deal with it. So we prayed, and we asked God to intervene, and he did. We haven't had any issues since. No bites, no problems. it took a while for me to share this because, people are weird, and they say they believe what Jesus said, and they say they believe the Bible, but this is my challenge to anyone who say they're a Christian or who say they believe in God. Read, study, and more than the Bible, because, I think everyone knows by now, the Bible has a lot of things missing from it. There's called the lost books. There's actually books of the Bible that have been taken out of the original version of the Bible. Go read those versions. There's books about Jesus before he was 30. All we know is when he was born and then when he was 30. What happened in between time? There's books out there that talks about that. Go read, study, show yourself approved. And this is my challenge to preachers. Like, it's time for you guys to educate yourselves, and you can educate us on what happens under real spiritual warfare. Like, if hell was to break loose on earth today, like what? Pray, and what else? What does it mean to have the whole armor of God? What does it mean to have the fruits of the Spirit? Like, all we hear about is, pay your tithes. Yeah, that's great. You are supposed to pay your tithes, but it's more to church than paying your tithes, and it's more to church than just going and shouting and woo. We need to know. We need some knowledge in these streets, okay? Because it's about to get real out here. I know firsthand.